I like the look with the glasses, but the ring light moment, it's not it, so they're coming off. Also, not wearing any makeup because I just couldn't be bothered today. So hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So I love making lists and I love watching these kind of videos, so I decided to make a video of the 22 books that I want to read in the year 2022. I just felt like it would be a cute idea to make a video like this, and then hopefully next year sometime like in November look back at this video and see how many books I've read, and then maybe next year making a video of like if I haven't read any books, trying to read them all like in the last month of the year or something. I don't know, I'm planning way too ahead, but I just thought this would be a cute video idea to like look back on. So I have a list of 22 books that I want to read in the year of 2022. Some of these books are just books that I've had on my TBR for just way too long. Some of these are 2022 releases that I'm really excited about. But yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. Obviously there's 22 books on this list, so I don't want to talk too much about each book. Some of these I have no idea what they're about. I just know like the hype or stuff around it, so I will talk about them. The first book I have on my list, I've actually been told not to read it several times, and you'll know when I put it up on the screen, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and this was gifted to me by Christina from Christina's Chapters for my birthday. I'm hoping to do a little video where I read like the saddest books on BookTube, and this is one of them. I've never heard of a person that has read this book and hasn't cried. I just know it's very sad, but I have been warned to not read this because I've heard that a lot of people get super depressed after reading this book and stuff, so I don't know when the right time to read this is. But I do know that this follows like 4 college students, and I think some of them like get famous and just kind of that life, I guess. I don't really know. From what I'm reading in the back, it's like the relationships and addiction, success, and pride deepen over the decades, which I just think I'm gonna love so much because I adore really long timelines, and just knowing that like we're gonna follow these characters for like decades, I am stoked. But also I've heard that this is just really sad, and it does involve like trauma and romance and all of that, so I'm scared to read this, but I have to read this in 2022. I am putting it in this video, so I have to read it. Next year is also huge, so we'll see, but I am nervous and excited to read this. The next 2 books, books number 2 and 3 on my list, are by the same author. I've read one book by her and it became one of my favorites of the year, and that is Miss Kristin Hannah. So next year I want to read Firefly Lane by Kristin Hannah and The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. This is a Netflix original series, and this one's becoming a movie. So yeah, I haven't watched this series for Firefly Lane. I've heard this one like raving reviews from Kirsten from Kirsten's Corner, and Kirsten and I have very similar reading tastes. So I have very high hopes that I will love this book because this is Kirsten's favorite book, I believe, by Kristin Hannah. So I'm really excited to read this one. I do think that this one is kind of historical fiction because it's set in the, well yeah, it says back here it's set in 1974, but it does follow, oh, not my video being done exporting. But I believe this also follows like a set of sisters. I don't believe they're twins, but just like siblings and kind of that relationship. I have heard that this doesn't have much of a plot, but I think that's fine with me as long as I'm engaged in the story. So this is one of them. This is the number 2, and then I also really want to read The Nightingale. I remember that I think I read about like 30-40 pages and I DNF'd because I wasn't in the mood to read historical fiction, but usually in the months of like January through March, this is all I want to read, so hopefully I get to this. But this one's a World War II novel, and I believe this one does follow a set of, they're not twins, but there are sisters and they're separated by the war. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this, and I'm super stoked for the movie because it's going to be with Dakota Fanning and Elle Fanning, and they're like actual sisters in real life, so I think that's really cool. So this is another one that I want to read in the year 2022, and a little trend is that these are all like huge ass books that I want to read next year. Coming in at number 4, I have Vicious by V. Schwab. Another book that obviously I've been wanting to read for a while. And this one is ooh, not the cover. Ew! It's damaged. We hate that. But the reason why I've been wanting to read this one for a while, it's because I've only read the Addie LaRue by V. Schwab, and I gave Addie LaRue 3 stars. I liked that it was okay. I think it was super hyped. I do know that that's like some people's favorite book of all time. Not for me, but I do want to read something else by V. Schwab, because I know that like a lot of people say that Addie LaRue is so different from everything else that V. Schwab has written, and I don't know, because I've never read anything else by V. Schwab. So Vicious is on my list. I think that this one also follows like college roommates, and I think they're like doing research and like experiments and stuff, and they kind of discover that they can have like superpowers, but it kind of goes badly, like they turn into villains, I believe. So I'm kind of skeptical, because I usually don't love like superhero books that are not graphic novels, but hopefully this one is good. Alright, coming in at number 5 is The Kiss of Deception by Marie E. Pearson. I think this is probably one of the books that has been on my TBR for the longest amount of time. I have been wanting to read this book since I was in high school, and I haven't been in high school for like 5 years now, 5-6 years, so it's been on my TBR for way too long. I do also remember starting this book and I like soft DNF'd, and I was really interested in it, but I don't know what happened that I stopped reading it. But this one, I believe, from what I remember, the girl is like, she has to get married for some reason to someone. I don't know. I don't even remember who she is, if she's like a princess or something. But she's supposed to get married, and then she like flees the day of her wedding. And there's like someone trying to capture her. Like there's like someone after her, and you read from his perspective. I believe there's like 3 POVs, and there's like a twist or something. I'm like reading the back, and nothing about what I'm saying right now is on this. But yeah, so I guess one POV is like the prince, and the other one's like an assassin that is sent to kill her. So yeah, I really have been wanting to read this. I feel like it's gonna have all of the angst, and it's going to make me feel like I'm back in high school. So I really want to read this next year. Next up, I have I have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and this is number 6 on the list. And this one I really want to read, because I usually don't read a lot of sci-fi, and I read even less sci-fi that it's like set in space. But also, I've never read a book by Brandon Sanderson ever before, and I think this is a good start. I've heard great things about this series, and I don't think it's as intimidating as the Final Empire like series. I think that's the name of it. But yeah, I really want to read this in the new year. Like I said, I do believe it's sci-fi. Well, I'm pretty sure that it is sci-fi, but I know nothing about what this book's about, and I'm fine not knowing anything. So yes, Skyward. Next up at number 7, I have The Gilded Wolves by Roshan Shakshi. Sorry about that. I don't know how to say their name. And this one's a fantasy. The reason why I put it on this list, and it's been on my mind a lot recently, is because I read somewhere, I don't know where I read this or saw this or whatever, but I saw somewhere that if you didn't like Six of Crows, that you would like this book. And I didn't really like Six of Crows that much. I feel like at the time when I read it, I wanted to like it so bad that I gave it 3 stars, but honestly now it's like a 2.5 for me. But yeah, I read somewhere that if you didn't like Six of Crows, you would like The Gilded Wolves. And as I'm reading like the description of this, it's pretty much like a Six of Crows type of like a crew of people that don't really know each other, kind of found family, and they all have like this heist. So basically, from what I'm reading in the back, our main character is kind of sent on like a hunt to find this ancient artifact that the Order seeks, and then it's like a whole bunch of different people like band together to work on this heist, and they obviously don't all know each other. So this sounds really interesting. I think I've heard Isa, my friend Isa from Ray or Shine, talk very highly about this book. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this. Coming in at number 8 on my list is another huge ass book. It's like the size of my face. It's The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I'm so excited to read this book. I don't know anything about this book. I do know this is this very high fantasy. From what I'm reading on the back, it seems like it's gonna follow a lot of different POVs. Like on the description, I see like 3 different people that are mentioned. So at the beginning it kind of says that like an unwed person has to like conceive a daughter in order to protect the realm, but assassins are getting closer to her door. And then it talks about someone else who is an outsider at court, and she has like a position of lady in waiting. And then it talks about another character that is trained to be a dragon rider since she was a child. So I'm hoping that this is like a multiple POV type of story. It's very high fantasy, and it has like a lot of political intrigue from what I can see. So I'm super excited to read this. It's huge. I had no idea what this book's about, so I'm really excited to read this. I do believe that this is sapphic, but I could be completely like mistaking this book for another one. But I do believe this is sapphic, and if it is, I'm on board. I am really excited to read this. Coming in at number 9, I have The Scent Keeper by Erica Bormeister. I am sorry. The reason why this is on my list is because I remember Nicole Lee from Bonbon Reads. She compared this book to Where the Crawdads Sing, and I was like, I love crawdads, so I'm gonna add this to my TBR. And I still haven't read it, and it's really short, so I'm hoping to get this this year. But this one is about like this father and daughter, and they kind of live like remotely. Like this girl, she has only ever known like her father like her whole life, and her father teaches her about the natural world through her senses. So he teaches her a lot about scent, but he doesn't ever really explain to her what some bottles that are in the walls of their cabin, what they are, or the machine that creates them. So I guess she's very like isolated. She only ever knows like whatever her dad tells her. And I'm assuming her father will pass away. Like on the back here it says like that the girl is like vaulted out into the real world. So I'm assuming her dad's gonna like die or something, and then she's gonna be like all alone and like in the real world, and she doesn't really know anything. So yeah, and it's like a quest to find her own identity, and I'm assuming all of the scent things are going to like take a role in the story. But I'm really excited to read this. It sounds really cool. And the comparison to crawdads, it's like really interesting. Coming in at number 10, I have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. You know, it's a romance. I know that that's all that Colleen Hoover writes. Romance. I've read a couple Colleen Hoover books, but the only ones that I've liked are It Ends With Us and what was the other one? Verity. And I think out of all of Colleen Hoover's books, I think It Ends With Us is my favorite. But this one is the one, I believe this is the one about the pilot, and it's like a romance with a pilot, and I don't know anything about this book. It's a romance. I don't really know, but I believe this is the one with the pilot. So, and I know that this is a lot of people's Colleen Hoover's like favorite book, so maybe I'll be wrong about Colleen Hoover, but I also don't love romance, so it's okay if I don't like this, but I do want to give it a try next year. Alright, coming in at number 11 is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is another book that has been on my TBR for way too long. I believe this has been on my TBR since probably high school. I don't remember what year it came out, but I was probably in high school when this came out. It has been on my TBR for way too long. And this one is pretty much about like this futuristic world where this app can tell you when you're going to die, or you get a phone call and like they tell you like you're gonna die in the next 24 hours. Here's another person that's also gonna die in the next 24 hours. Keep each other company. So these two boys meet through this app and they spend the last like 24 hours together, and I'm assuming that they fall in love. So this just sounds like something that I'm gonna love so much, and this is also going to become like an HBO movie or something, so I'm even more excited to read this. And it's by Latinx author. It has some Latinx characters in there, I believe, so hopefully this becomes one of the Brujas and Books picks in the future. But yes, I'm super excited to read this. Next up, at number 12, I have Orange, the complete collection #1. This is a manga series. I believe there's like 2 complete collection series. I don't really know. I remember starting to read this, but I was a little confused. I've heard that this is really, really sad. I think it's mostly about like grief, and I believe like someone, like one of the boys, that they're all friends and one of the boys like passes away or something, and it's just really sad. I think, I don't know, but I've heard Renee like say amazing things about this book, so I've been really wanting to read it, and it's a manga, so it should be a pretty quick read. But yeah, this is another one that I want to read next year. Okay, coming in at number 13, I don't own because it's a release of 2022, and that is Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. And this is the prequel to We Were Liars. And if you don't know me that well, you don't know that We Were Liars is one of my favorite books of all time. I read this book when I was in high school, and I think this is the only book that I've ever reread. I don't reread books very often, and this is the only one that I've reread like 5 times because I love We Were Liars. So I was so excited to hear that there was going to be a prequel because I loved the writing in this novel, and I'm really excited to like visit that like world again, I guess, and that storyline and those characters, because I'm assuming the prequel will be about like the parents of the kids. So I'm excited to read about that because those were characters that I did really enjoy in We Were Liars, so I'm excited to read that. Next up, I have The Winner's Curse. I believe the author's name is Marie Rakowski. I don't own this physically, but this is another book that has been on my TBR probably since high school, and this one's more like fantasy, YA, a lot of angst. There's a romance. I believe this is a series, but I don't know much about the plot of this. I do believe that this does have to do with like a girl that in this world like you can have kind of like slaves, and I believe like she falls in love with her slave or something. I don't know. I think it was kind of problematic, and I could be completely wrong and thinking of a whole other book, but I think this is what that is. And I want to read it because it just sounds, I don't know, it sounds interesting, but we'll see if I think it's problematic and not good. But yeah, I want to read this. Coming in at number 15 is another book that I don't own physically, and that is They Never Learned by Lane Fargo. This one I've heard amazing things from a lot of my closest friends. Sav from Riveting Reads just put this on her favorite books of the year, and I really want to read it. This is kind of like a dark academia. This is set in like a college campus, and it's about this professor. I believe she finds like the worst like student, or maybe it's professor on campus, of someone that does like terrible things, I guess, and she finds like the worst person, and then she kills them every year. I think she picks one and then she kills them, and I've heard that there is like really cool twists throughout this novel, and I've heard it's a really, really good one, so I definitely want to read this in 2022. Yes. Coming in at number 16, I also don't own because this one hasn't come out, and that one is Saga Volume 10. This doesn't even have a cover. Listen, this is one of my favorite graphic novels ever. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but this is my favorite series, and I've been following the series for so long. I believe Saga Volume 9 came out sometime when I was in college, like my sophomore or junior year of college, and I remember reading the last issue, and the author said that they were going on a break and they haven't published another volume, but I keep hearing a lot of buzz of people saying that the next volume will come out this year, well, 2022. So I'm like crossing my fingers that volume 10 comes out in 2022 because I love this series so much. Basically, this one is kind of like a space opera type of novel, and it's set in like this world where species are very divided, and like they really hate each other, and then these two people from different, like, I don't remember like the species, but some of them have like butterfly like wings, and then the other ones have horns, and two of these people from the different species fall in love and they have a child, and this child is like being hunted down because it's the only like child like that, because no one from these species, like, they don't interact, so no one has kids that look like this child that has both horns and wings. So yeah, it's a really good series. That's just the start of that, because then you meet so many characters and so many things happen, and it's so good. So I'm hoping volume 10 comes out 2022. Coming in at number 17, I have The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This year in 2021, I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I really enjoyed it. And I've heard The Hunting Party is very similar vibes. I've heard some people say that they like The Hunting Party better, but this is mostly like a mystery thriller kind of novel. The Guest List was kind of like a remote setting, kind of like whodunit, someone dies at this wedding, I believe. Yes. But yeah, it's kind of like a whodunit. It was like in a I think it was Scotland, and it was like in an island, and it was remote, and it was set during a wedding. So I've heard The Hunting Party has very similar like remote type of vibes, so I really want to read this next year. Next up, I have Circe by Madeline Miller. You know, my friends know me very well, and they know whether or not I'm gonna like a book, and they've told me that they don't think I'm gonna like this book, but they also told me that they didn't think I was going to like The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and that was one of my favorite books of this year, 2021. So I do kind of want to give Circe a try, but I'm kind of scared because The Song of Achilles was like a romance, and I've heard that Circe is not. So I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I do want to try it because it sounds like it's gonna have a really badass main character, but it's kind of a slow burn type of book, so I don't know whether or not I'm gonna like it, but I do want to try it. Alright, coming in at number 10, I have Project Hail Harry. Is that what it? No. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And Weir? I don't know. But Andy Weir wrote The Martian, and I did watch that movie, and I really loved it. I never read the book, but I've heard great things about it. I've heard it's pretty funny and stuff, and it is sci-fi. I don't know much about the plot of Project Hail Mary, but I do know that it's like sci-fi, and a lot of people that don't read sci-fi do really enjoy this book, so I want to try it out because, I don't know, it just seems like a book that a lot of people are reading now. So I want to try it. Next up, I have One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but she is the writer, author of In 5 Years. I haven't read that novel. I've heard mixed things about that one, but this one is about this girl who is going on this trip to Italy with her mother, but right before they're going on this trip, her mother passes away. But she decides to go on this trip still because she thinks that's what her mother would have wanted her to do. So once she goes to Italy, she sees her mother, and she thinks that she's having like this moment, but she actually sees like her mother in the flesh. But I do believe it's like a younger version of her mother, like a not sick version of her mother. But I don't believe she like recognizes her, so she kind of befriends her and spends time with her when she's in Italy. And I just think it's gonna be so sad, because I like in the novel, like back here it says that Carol, like her mom, wasn't just Katie's mom but her best friend and her first phone call, and I feel about that like that way about my mom. So I feel like I'm gonna cry a lot during this book. This was an ARC also sent to me. I forget the publisher. Oh my god, Atria Books. And this one comes out in March 1st of 2022. So I'm really excited to read this in the new year. I feel like it's gonna be really sad, but yeah, stoked. Okay, last two. So I have at number 21, yes, at number 21 I have Amari and the Great Game. I always forget the name. I think it's B.B. Alston. I forget the name of the author. I'm so sorry. But I read Amari and the Night Brothers in 2021, and this was one of my favorite books of the year. This is a middle grade fantasy book, and this one is about this young girl who finds out that she has powers, and she's kind of like a witch, wizard type of thing. But her brother goes missing simultaneously as she's finding out that she has these powers, and basically she has to go to this world, but in order to stay like in this wizard world, she has to like take tests and stay in this school. She has to make sure that she's like passing all of these tests in order to be in this wizarding world, to be able to kind of investigate what happened to her brother, because she's also finding out like that her brother also has like those powers, and he's been part of this world for all these years because he's older than her. So yeah, I loved Amari and the Night Brothers, and I can't wait for the sequel. Alright, coming in at number 22, this is the last book on the list, is Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This one is also another sequel, and this is a sequel to The Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I think I read that book maybe in 2019, 2020, and I loved it. This is a YA kind of mystery novel, and the first one follows this girl who is doing a senior project, and she decides to kind of reinvestigate and open a closed case in her small town, but she believes that they framed the wrong guy for the murder. So she kind of goes back in and investigates this like really popular murder case from her small town, and she's obviously in high school, and it was a really good novel, and I loved the writing. It was very addicting, so I do know that I'm gonna love this one. So yes, this is another book that I want to read in 2022. Alright, those were the 22 books that I want to read in the year 2022. Hopefully I remember to watch back this video sometime in October, sometime in the fall of 2022, to see which ones I'm missing that I haven't read from this list, and hopefully I can make a video where I try to read whatever I haven't read yet. But yeah, I'm so excited to read all of these books and just read all of the books in 2022. I hope you enjoyed this list, and I hope that anything that I mentioned in this list, if you find interesting, DM me so maybe we can buddy read it and it'll give me a little bit more motivation. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!